Namo Buddhaya, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram, the largest sutra on perfect wisdom, the chapter 71st. The nature of dharmas is SIGNLESS and cannot be apprehended. Subhuti. If all dharmas have a non-existent own being, as a result of which reasoning does the Bodhisattva, for the sake of beings, see out to fully know the utmost right and perfect enlightenment? The Lord. To the extent that all dharmas are non-existent in their own being, to that extent the Bodhisattva sets out for the supreme enlightenment. And why? Something base is a basis, and there can be no attainment, reunion, or full enlightenment for someone who has the notion of a basis. Subhuti. Is there then an attainment of the baseless, a reunion with it, or a full enlightenment with regard to it? The Lord. Just the baseless is attainment, just the baseless is reunion, just the baseless is full enlightenment, on account of the fact that the realm of Dharma should not be upset. One would wish to upset the realm of Dharma if one were to wish for the attainment of the baseless, for reunion with it, or for full enlightenment with regard to it. Subhuti. If there is no attainment of the baseless, no reunion with it, and no full enlightenment with regard to it, but if just the baseless is attainment, just the baseless is reunion, just the baseless is the supreme enlightenment, how then again can there be of a Bodhisattva the first, etc., to the 10th stage? How the passion, the acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced? How can there be those karma resultant superknowledges, and that karma resultant given, etc., to wisdom, which enable him to mature beings to purify this Buddha field, and to serve upon the Buddha and Lords with food, etc., to other benefits useful to humans, and which will not be snatched away from him before his karma result becomes exhausted at the time when, on having entered the final nirvana, he leaves his relics and disciples. The Lord. Just in so far as there is the baseless, just so far there are the 10 stages, the karma result and 5 superknowledges, the karma result and perfections, as well as the karma result and wholesome runes, by which he works the wheel of beings, until on having entered final nirvana he becomes an object of worship. Subhuti. What is the distinction, what the difference between the baseless on the one side and the perfections and superknowledges on the other? The Lord. There is no difference between them, but with regard to the unstained perfections and superknowledges, a difference has been laid out. Subhuti. What is that difference? The Lord. Here the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom gives gifts without having apprehended the gift, or the renunciation, or the donor, or the recipient. He guards morality without having apprehended morality, etc. He purifies the Buddha field without having apprehended the Buddha field, and he fully knows enlightenment without having apprehended the Buddha dharmas. It is thus that the Bodhisattva courses in a perfection of wisdom, which doesn't act as a basis. It is thus that the Bodhisattva courses in perfect wisdom, and that coursing in it, he becomes unassailable by Mara and the Evil One, or by the divinities of Mara's host. The single instantaneous reunion. The reunion by one single thought in general. Subhuti. How does the Bodhisattva, the great being, coursing in the perfection of wisdom, acquire with one single thought the 6 perfections, etc., to the 80 accessory marks of a Superman? The single instantaneous reunion with regard to all dharmas without outflows and without karma result, this not having yet matured. The Lord. Here whatever gift a Bodhisattva may give, that is not taken hold of apart from perfect wisdom, and so for all other spiritual practices. Subhuti. How does a Bodhisattva who has been taken hold of by perfect wisdom acquire, with one single production of thought, the 6 perfections, etc., to the 80 accessory marks of a Superman? The Lord. Here when the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom gives gifts, then taken hold of by perfect wisdom, he is not one who perceives duality in that, And so for the other spiritual practices, Subhuti, how can a Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom accomplish these spiritual practices without becoming one who perceives duality therein? The Lord. Here, a Bodhisattva coursing in perfect wisdom fulfills the perfection of giving. He gives gifts after having included in that perfection of giving all the six perfections. And likewise, he fulfills all the dharmas which constitute the wings of enlightenment, etc. Too, he develops the path after having included it in all the perfections. And why should that be so? At the time when the Bodhisattva coursing in perfect wisdom gives a gift, he does so having stood in a thought without outflows, and he doesn't review a sign him who gives, him to whom he gives, to whom he gives, what he gives, whom am I that gives? He gives his gift with a thought free from signs, without outflows, free from craving and ignorance. He doesn't review that thought nor that gift, and so on, up to all the Buddha Dharmas. Moreover, with a thought free from signs, he practices the other five perfections as well as the remaining spiritual practices. And in each case, he fails to review them and their constituents. Subhuti. How does the Bodhisattva fulfill these spiritual practices when all dharmas are without signs and unaffected? The Lord. Here the Bodhisattva gives to all who ask for them gifts with a thought free from all signs, food to those who desire food, drink to those who desire drink, etc. And if someone who has come along should say to him, "What is the use of your giving a gift which is no help at all?" Then the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom thinks to himself, "Although those beings do abuse me and say, 'What is the use of your giving such a trifling gift?' Nevertheless, I should give gifts and I should not give them." Having made this gift common to all beings, he dedicates it to the supreme enlightenment. But he dedicates it in such a way that when dedicating, he doesn't review a sign. This is the gift, to him I give, by that I give, or who is it that gives? Or I do dedicate to what do I dedicate? Where with do I dedicate? Who is it that dedicates? He doesn't review the entity which he would give away or which, having given it away, he would dedicate to the supreme enlightenment. And why? Because all such entities are empty through 13 kinds of emptiness. And when he thus considers where to he will dedicate, what he will dedicate, and whereby he will dedicate, then his dedication will be actually effective. Furthermore, he matures beings and acquires a Buddha field. He fulfills the perfection of giving, etc., to the 18 special Buddha Dharmas. And from the very beginning, he fulfills the perfection of giving without ceasing on its reward. Just as the Paranirmitavasavartin gods satisfy all their needs by mind alone, so does the Bodhisattva. Through that gift, he serves upon the Buddhas and Lord. He gladdens the world with its godsmen and asuras and established these beings in the triple vehicle through his having taken up that perfection of giving as well as through his skill and means. It is thus that a Bodhisattva, coursing in perfect wisdom, fulfills the perfection of giving with a thought free from signs. And how does the Bodhisattva fulfill the perfection of morality? Here, the Bodhisattva fulfills the perfection of morality while coursing in perfect wisdom. He acquires that morality which is wholly without outlaws, which is included within the path and which is acquired in the nature of things. And his morality becomes unimpaired, flawless, pure, and tarnished, something which sets free from the slavery of craving, which it is good to concentrate upon and which has been lauded by the wise. And in respect of that morality, he doesn't misconstrue any dharma from form to the achievement of world rulership. But having made this morality common to all beings, he dedicates it to the knowledge of all modes by way of dedication, which is signless, baseless, and non-dual, and which is also by way of worldly convention and not by way of ultimate reality. And through having fulfilled that perfection of morality, he produces, through his skill and means, the four trances without wishing to enjoy their fruits. He further achieves the heavenly eye. With that heavenly eye relating to moral discipline, he sees the Buddhas and Lords who in all the 10 directions stand, hold, and maintain themselves, and who demonstrate Dharma. And he doesn't lose that vision before he has known full enlightenment. With a heavenly ear, pure and surpassing that of man, he hears the words of those Buddhas and Lords when they preach the doctrine. And he doesn't forget what he has heard before he has worked. As a result of what he has heard, the will of himself and of others, with the cognition of others' mental makeup, he wisely knows with its own mind the mental process of those Buddhas and Lords. And with the help of that cognition of others' mental makeup, he works the will of beings, of all beings. With the help of the recollection of former lives, he appreciates the past merits of those beings, and through those meritorious deeds, he still further encourages those beings, with the result that they become people of specific attainments. With the cognition of the extinction of the outflows, he establishes beings in the fruits of the holy life, from that of a extreme winner to the supreme enlightenment. In fact, he establishes beings in wholesome dharmas in accordance with their capabilities. It is thus that the Bodhisattva fulfills the perfection of morality with a mind free from science. And how does he fulfill the perfection of passions when dharmas are silent and passive, baseless and unaffected? Here in the Bodhisattva, beginning with the first thought of enlightenment until he is seated on the terrace of enlightenment, even if all beings should give him blows with clawed sticks and swords, should not give an occasion to even one single thought associated with rage. In fact, the Bodhisattva should develop two kinds of passions, which two? He should endure of all beings the abuse of revilings, as well as the blows with clawed sticks and swords. And he should also produce the passionate acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. As to the first, the Bodhisattva should, when abused or reviled, or when he received blows with clawed sticks or swords, reflect as follows: who is that abuses or reviles me, or gives me blows with clawed sticks or swords? And to whom does he give this? He should contemplate the own being of all dharmas, and when he does so, he apprehends not even dharmas, how much less the own being of dharma itself. And when he contemplates the own being of dharma, he thinks to himself, who cuts or breaks me? When he contemplates the own being of dharma in this manner, then he acquires the passion acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. And that is the passion acceptance of dharmas which fail to be produced. It is of two kinds. The one results from the non-genesis of the defilements, and the other from the non-cutting of cognition. Having stood in these two kinds of passions, he will fulfill the four trances, etc., to the 18 special Buddha dharmas. Having stood in these dharmas, which are wholly without outflow, supramountain, not shared by all the disciples and particular Buddhas, he fulfills at the same time the holy super knowledges. When he has fulfilled them, he reaches the fullness of the six perfections. And when he has stood in the five super knowledges, which are without outflows, then he sees with his heavenly eye in all the 10 directions the Buddhas and Lords, and as a result he acquires the correct collection of the Buddhas. And that Buddha recollection of his will not be cut off again before he knows full enlightenment. With the heavenly ear, he learns all that these Buddhas and Lords have taught, and he thereupon teaches beings Dharma just as it is. And he will understand with his own mind the mental process of these Buddhas and Lords. And after he has, through his cognition of others' mental wake-up, understood with his own mind the mental processes of all beings, he will teach Dharma just as it is, after he has appraised, through his cognition of the recollection of former lives, the wholesome roots of those beings. He will, as a result of that former wholesome root, encourage them still further, and through his cognition of the extinction of the outlaws, he will exhort those beings to the triple vehicle and establish them therein. And that Bodhisattva coursing in perfect wisdom will, through skill and means, mature beings purify the Buddha field, and coursing in the knowledge of all modes, he will, having fulfilled the knowledge of all modes and having won full enlightenment, turn the wheel of Dharma. It is thus that a Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfills the perfection of passions. How then does the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfill the perfection of vigor? Although dharmas are signless, impassive, baseless, non-manifest, and unaffected, here the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom becomes endowed with physical vigor. He dwells having entered upon the four trances, one after the other. When he has achieved the fourth trance, he experiences manifold wonder-working powers, etc. With his hands he handles even the sun and moon and up to the world of Brahma. He holds sway with his body. Endowed with this physical vigor, he travels by means of his wonder-working powers to the many hundreds of thousands of world systems in the 10 directions, where the Buddhas and Lords dwell, and he soars upon those Buddhas and Lords with robes, arms, bows, etc. And his robes, arms, bows, etc. will not get exhausted before he knows full enlightenment. And when he has won full enlightenment, then the world with its godsmen and asuras will become happy through these robes, arms, bows, etc. And when he has entered final nirvana, his relics will be worshipped. Having traveled to other world systems by means of his wonder-working powers, he hears the Dharma from those Buddhas and Lords, and before he wins full enlightenment, he will never again forget what he has heard. And he matures beings and acquires a Buddha field while coursing in the knowledge of all modes. It is thus that the Bodhisattva endowed with physical vigor fulfills the perfection of vigor. And how then does the Bodhisattva fulfill the perfection of vigor? When he is endowed with a mental vigor which takes place in the holy path without outlaws and is included in the path. Here the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom and is endowed with mental vigor gives no opportunity to unwholesome deeds of body or speech. He doesn't misconstrue anything whatsoever as permanent or impermanent, is or will or is or ill, self or not self, condition or unconditioned, be it the world of sense desire, the world of form, or the formless world, the element without loss or the element without outlaw, or the transient concentrations of friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and partiality, or the formless concentration, or the application of mindfulness, etc., to the Buddha Dharmas. Nor does he misconstrue the fruits of the holy life from the fruit of extreme winner to bodhisattvahood is permanent or impermanent, etc. And he doesn't mistakenly say that these beings have been exalted by vision, those by a stage of refinement, those by the removal of the lower fetters, those by the removal of the higher fetters, those by particular Buddhahood or by the knowledge of all modes of the path or by the knowledge of all modes. And why? Because there does not exist the own being of all these states by which the beings could be exalted. Endowed with this mental vigor, even at the time of his dying, the works the will of being, but without apprehending them. He fulfills the perfection of vigor, but doesn't apprehend it. He fulfills the Buddha Dharmas, but doesn't apprehend them. He purifies the Buddha field, but doesn't apprehend it. Endowed with this physical and mental vigor, he fulfills all the wholesome dharmas, but doesn't cling to them. Not clinging to them, he passes on from Buddha field to Buddha field and works the will of beings. He works miracles with the help of whichever wonder-working powers he desires to use, whether it be a rain, flowers, or an emission of scents, or by songs and music, or an earthquake, or the splendor of his appearance, or as display of a world system made up of the 7 precious things, or whatever he sacrificed himself for the sake of those who want to regain their youth, or of those who are blind to the light, or whatever he discharges sense or bestows great oblations, but without taking any life in the process, or introduces countless beings to the path, etc., whether he includes them to desist from the taking of life, etc., to whether he frees them from wrong views. Some he helps by giving, others by morality. For the sake of others, again, he renounces all his limbs. To some he gives sons and daughters, and to others a kingdom. For the sake of others, he sacrifices himself. In this way, he works the will of beings. By whatever device it can be worked. It is thus that a Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom and is endowed with mental vigor fulfills the perfection of vigor, even through dharmas, be signless. And how does the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfill the perfection of meditation, in spite of the fact that he has stood in dharmas as nameless and signless? Here the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfills all the concentrations with the exception of that of the Tathagata. Detached from sense desires and other evil and wholesome dharmas, and unwholesome dharmas, he dwells as one who has entered on the first trance, which is with applied and discursive thought born of detached, full of rapture and ease. And so for the other trances he dwells as one who has irradiated the entire world, with a mind associated with friendliness, etc., with impartiality, etc., he dwells as one who has entered on the station of neither perception nor non-perception. Having stood in that perception of meditation, he enters on the 8 emancipations in direct and in reverse order and emerges from them. He dwells as one who has entered the 9 successive meditational achievements, as well as the concentration on emptiness, the signless concentration, and the wishless concentration. He dwells as one who has entered on the unimpeded concentration, and the concentration which is like lightning, the right concentration, and the adamantine concentration. Having stood in this perfection of meditation, he dwells as one who has entered the 37 dharmas which act as wings to enlightenment. Having stood in this perception of meditation, which with the help of the cognition of the knowledge of the modes of the path, he sees that all concentrations are included in the knowledge of all modes of the path. He transcends the stage of bright inside, the stage of becoming one of the clan, the 8th lowest stage, the stage of vision, the stage of attenuation of the defilements, the stage where one is without greed, the stage of practical Buddha, and then moves into Bodhisattva's certainty of salvation and fulfills the stage of a Buddha. And although he courses in the stages, he doesn't midway attain the fruit before he reached the cognition of the knowledge of all modes. Having stood in this perfection of meditation, he passes on from Buddha field to Buddha field, honoring the Buddhas and Lords. He honors those Buddhas and Lords, plants wholesome roots in their presence, matures beings, and purifies the Buddha field. He passes on from world system to world system and works the will of beings. Some he wins over with gifts, etc., to some with vision and cognition of emancipation. Some he establishes in the fruit of a stream winner, etc., to some he establishes in full enlightenment. By whatever wholesome dharmas the beings may be lifted up, just those he enjoins on them. Having stood in this perfection of meditation, he consummates all the running doors and acquires the 4 analytical knowledges, and he becomes a recipient of the super knowledges which are born of karma result. Never again is he reborn in the belly of a mother, and never again does he pursue sense pleasures. There is no kind of rebirth that he doesn't take up. Through he is not polluted by the faults which are apt to attend the rebirth. And why? Because he has well seen that all dharmas are like a magical illusion. Having known that all conditioned things are like a magical illusion, he works the will of beings without, however, apprehending therein any beings or the concept of a being. Himself non-apprehending, he establishes beings in the baselessness of all dharmas through an account of worldly conventions and not in ultimate reality. Having stood in this perfection of meditation, he courses in all the trances, emancipations, concentrations, and meditational attainments, and he will never again be lacking in the perfection of meditation until the time that he wins the supreme enlightenment. Having stood in this knowledge of the modes of the path, he consummates the knowledge of all modes. Having stood therein, he forsakes the residues of all defilements. he then works his own will and that of others. Thereupon he becomes worthy of gifts from the world with its godsmen and asuras. It is thus the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfills the perfection of meditation. The single instantaneous reunion with regard to all dharmas without outgrowth, which have reached the state where their karma result has matured. And how does the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom among signless dharmas go to the fulfillment of the development of the perfection of wisdom? Here, the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom doesn't review any dharma is truly real or is totally real, but he doesn't review that true or total reality with regard to the skandhas, nor does he review their production, the door of their arrival, or their heaping together, and so on until we come to he doesn't review the door of arrival of all dharmas with and without outlaws, but he reviews them as just vanities or nullities. And when he considers thus, he doesn't apprehend the own being of any dharma. Coursing in perfect wisdom, he firmly believes that all dharmas have non-existence of own being. Having firmly believed that, he courses in the emptiness and doesn't settle down in a dharma whatsoever, coursing in a perfection of wisdom, which is non-existent in its own being. He fulfills the path of a bodhisattva, the 6 perfections, etc., to the 80 minor characteristics. Having stood in the path to enlightenment, which has the nature of being a karma result, when he has fulfilled the 6 perfections, the 37 wings to enlightenment, and the super knowledges which are born from karma result, he helps with gifts those beings who should be helped with gifts. And so he helps them with morality, patience, vigor, concentration, wisdom, emancipation, and the vision and cognition of emancipation. He establishes in the fruit of a stream winner those who should be established in the fruit of a stream winner, etc. Too, he establishes in full enlightenment those who should be established in the full enlightenment. And so all this should be done in full detail, working miracles with his manifold wonder-working powers. He travels towards systems numerous as the sands of Ganga, and he conjures up all those precious things which he planned to produce. Fulfilling the intentions of beings, he passes on from Buddha field to Buddha field. When he has seen those world systems, he acquires the Buddha field which he wishes to acquire, and therein there will be all the enjoyment, and their objects which are found among the gods who hold sway over the enjoyments magically created by others, or which can he had in the other Buddha fields without having to strive for them. Through those karma result in 6 perfections and super knowledges, as well as the path to enlightenment, which is born of karma result, he attains, coursing in the knowledge of all modes of the path, the fulfillment of all dharmas, and will reach the knowledge of all modes, and so on. If all dharmas have not been taken hold of, then of someone who has known the supreme enlightenment, all the enjoyments and objects of enjoyment in this Buddha field will be something that he has not taken hold of. And why? Because all dharmas have not been taken hold of on account of their baselessness. And he teaches the Dharma to beings so that they may not take hold of any Dharma. It is thus that the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom fulfills the perfection of wisdom by way of signlessness. This is the end of 71st chapter of the large Sutra on perfect wisdom, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram.